Hey guys, Greg Alexander. I wanted to recap the Upper Bay Northern Open for you. I did horrible in this tournament. I've been fishing the Bay for 30 years. I knew it was going to be a tough tournament. Man, I just could not catch up with these fish during the tournament. I do want to say that I practiced for four and a half days for the tournament. And 2 of the days of practice, I would have had over 15 pounds. And, I get those 2 days as 2 of my tournament days. I'm in second place going into the last day. But for whatever reason, hard to explain sometimes, man, I just never could catch up with those fish during the tournament. So anyhow, I get there on Saturday. And I launched in the Sassafras River, where we normally launch when we fish our local tournaments there. And I fished around and went to a lot of places that I haven't been in years and years. And did pretty good. Here's one of the catches. Upper Bay, Northern Bass Open, first day of practice, about the first 10 casts or so. Nice 3+, good fish. Come here, big. Now that's the kind of fish we're looking for there. 4 1/4 probably. Good one. So I went on from there. A lot of the fish I didn't get. The camera's been acting really kind of silly, overheating on me and different things. So I'm not getting a lot of the footage that I should be getting in these tournaments. So I went on from there that day and probably caught 15, maybe 16 pounds with my best 5 fish on Saturday, just dumbing around. And so I'm thinking, well, I got everything that I would normally be able to do in addition to this stuff that I'm finding here, places I haven't been in years and I'm catching fish on. So I'm feeling pretty good. So then I go out the next day on Sunday, and I dedicated Sunday to the flats. And didn't have a lot of hope for the flats, because for me, the flats have just been terrible. I mean, just literally terrible. And I literally had like 1 or 2 bites all day long on the flats. So I counted that pretty much out of the game. And I thought I'm gonna have to find them someplace else. So Monday, I again focused on areas south of the flats, down the bay, different areas, and I didn't want to fish a lot of stuff that I figured I was going to fish anyhow if I got into the tournament. So I started jumping around to either areas that I haven't fished in years and years or places that I'd never fished before. And I shook off 12 or 13 fish and five bass that I caught that I couldn't shake off that day. Pretty sure with the ones that I shook off and the ones that I caught, several nice fish, that I had over 15 pounds again. So I'm thinking to myself, and I've kind of decided going into this tournament that it's probably only going to take about 13 pounds a day to make the top 10. And the reason I say that is because even in buddy tournaments lately, 15, 16 pounds with 2 people fishing for them is winning buddy tournaments. In a one-day tournament where the place hasn't been pressured for a week or two, a lot. So I figured 13 a day would make you the top 10. As it turns out, it only took a little bit more than 11 pounds a day to make the top 10 in this tournament. It was an extremely difficult tournament. So the next day of practice, it poured. I think literally poured. And I didn't even go out until, after the rain laid off, because I was like, well, I'm going to go subject myself to that, and I'm probably not going to learn anything anyhow in those situations. And didn't do very well again, fishing around the flats area. And then the final day of practice, half day of practice, I thought, well, I'm going to go try to expand a little bit on what I found down the bay. And I had 2 keeper bites the last day of practice. So I had 2 extremely good days of practice, and I had 3 extremely horrible, or 2.5 horrible days of practice there. So I had no options other than I was going to do what those 2 good days led me to. And then, I don't know, we had this full moon come in, and I never seemed to do as well personally on full moon tournaments outside of the spawn. I don't know why. I don't know if my style doesn't fit the fish's attitude during these periods of time. But, even with the full moon approaching, we had a north wind, and the water just wouldn't leave the bay in this tournament. And what I was doing, I wasn't fishing grass. I was fishing basically shoreline covered docks and wood and stump and, a couple isolated things off the bank. And those fish on these rivers tend to hang out somewhere. Who knows where? Out there, you usually can't catch them, but they tend to hang out somewhere out off the bank until the tide gets to a certain point where they feel like the bank has been sucked dry enough that they have a good chance for feeding opportunities. And in this tournament, that never really happened. The tide never really got down. It stayed up the whole time, the first 2 days anyhow. And a lot of people, I believe, that caught those fish the first day of the tournament, if you didn't catch them right off the get-go, first thing in the morning, then on that first part of incoming tide, which, if you had early flight, you really didn't get that. And I noticed, like in the standings the first day, that after 3/4 of the field had weighed in, 10 pounds was in 10th place. But then by the time the last quarter of the field weighed in, it was, 11 something with 20 people with 11 pounds after the final. So that last quarter of the day, with that little bit of incoming tide, triggered what little bit of bite that there really was that day. And the people who ended up in the right place at the right time caught them. And there's a lot of people that caught 11, 12 pounds the first day, which was excellent in this tournament, who caught none or 1 or 2 or next to nothing the second day. And there's people who got a later draw the second day, who the first day were in before the bite started, who did better the second day. Well, I was in the middle of the pack both days, so I kind of just got to low tide both days where I was at. So I didn't really get that bite window that everybody else had. So I don't know, why I couldn't at least scratch out a limit each day. Just didn't happen. Sometimes these things are just unexplainable. I've got probably as much knowledge of the bay as most anybody. Doesn't mean you catch them just because you have the knowledge of it. Sometimes it hurts you because you're counting too much on history. And when you get weird situations like full moon tides, that make the fish do weird things, you still trying to force them to bite where they're not going to bite. You know, and I noticed, you know, I watched the last day video of the guys on the bay, and, you know, where Chad Pipkins was fishing. That was one of the areas that I felt comfortable I could catch them. You know, where Pete Lusek was fishing, that was another couple of the areas that I felt comfortable that I could catch them. Of course, where those boys were fishing on the flat right outside of the takeoff there, there's always fish there. It's a little early for them to show up on top of that flat, but they were there. And, you know, but you'll notice that pretty much nobody in the top 10 fished the grass flats. Nobody. Because it was just ridiculously tough out there. So the keys for the tournament probably were, you couldn't know too much because it didn't do what it should have done. If you got around some fish and you didn't know where any other fish were, you tended to stay with them and grind it out and catch those fish. So it never turns out the way you expected. It rarely, I don't say never, but it rarely turns out the way you expect it to. Personally, this has been one of the toughest tournament years that I can remember. Even locally, it's been extremely difficult this year. I fished the 3 Bass Northern Divisionals. I finished 43rd, 60th, and now 109th. And not in that particular order, 60th, 43rd, 109th. So I never made a check this year. And it just was a difficult year. But generally on the bay, this time of year, if you're going to win a tournament, you're either going to get a fortunate flurry of bites on a frog somewhere around that grass, or a chatterbait somewhere around that grass, or you're going to have to get somewhere with a finesse bait and finesse these fish out. And for me, I couldn't make it happen. So anyhow, I do have some more attached video practice here that you can enjoy. And again, I thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed day. Little small keeper, that's my 3rd fish this morning. Look at the build on that fish. That fish is 13 inches long and it's probably over 2 pounds. Two-pounder. I shook the last 3 off, so I'm getting quite a few bites this morning, which is encouraging. Well, I just shook another one off. I hate to shake them off because I like to know how big they are, but just shook another one off. Just broke one off over there. He sawed me off under a tree. It was a great big one. So it's a good thing I didn't catch him. Hopefully he's not lure shy later on. So there's some fish biting today. I have no idea what's going to happen in the tournament though. Stay tuned. nice 3-pounder on a spinnerbait. Starting to get on a spinnerbait. I just missed one bigger than that. Something weird going on today up here on the Upper Bay. That's a stinking almost 4-pound smallmouth. I've caught 3 today, smallmouth, and they're not where smallmouth should be. It's just a strange day. I don't know what's going on. So there he goes. He's got a bloody tail like he's spawning. Weird. Quality fish. Little spinnerbait.